It's time to take your business to the next level, the boss level. These are the premier business owner strategies and successes being utilized by the industry's top talent today. Rock your business like a boss, a VO boss. Now let's welcome your host, Ann Ganguza.
Hey everyone, welcome to the VO Boss Podcast. I'm your host, Ann Ganguza. Welcome to our Business Superpowers series with the one and only Lau Lapides. Hey Lau.
Hey Ann.
How's it going today?
Oh, it's beyond awesome. I'm always thrilled to be on with you. I mean,
it's just beyond
I
awesome.
can't wait to see what's going to happen.
I love it. Well, then I've got a question for you, okay?
Okay. All
right.
This
is a question I get asked a lot. So if you had to give 3 words to describe me, what would those 3 words be? Either my voice or something that would help to brand me. What would those 3 words be?
Now, are you talking about, let's qualify that. Is that within the profession or is that just in general as a person from the short time that we've known each other?
Well, you know what? Since it's such a personal brand, like we are personal brands, I think it could be a mix of both if it needs to be.
Okay.
Because I think people want to connect to the human side of Ann as well as the business side of Ann.
Okay. And by no means is it just these 3 words, because we could probably come up with 50 words for you, but we only have so much time. So we'll say 3 for now.
And hopefully they're good words.
Oh, of course. Okay. So the first one that comes to my mind that I can't dismiss is feisty.
Ooh, feisty. I like feisty.
Feisty always goes with like fun in my mind too, but feisty.
That's a good word. Thank you.
The second one would be, I want to say intelligent. I feel it's a little bit bland of a word. I was almost going to say sophisticated.
Oh, so feisty, intelligent, or sophisticated. I'll take those.
Seasoned.
Ooh, seasoned. That's awesome. Wow.
Yes. And those are 3 that come to my mind. If you give me another 5 minutes, I'll come up with more.
I love that. Wow.
And to be perfectly transparent with our listeners, even though I feel like I've known you forever, we really have only been working together like a week. And we only met. When did we meet? A month or 2 ago? Right? But see, already I got so much perception of your vibe and the way you work and how you're thinking about things. And it's a lot in a very short amount of time.
So if I had 3 words for you, and this is funny because, look, I have not thought about this.
Okay.
Bosses, I sprung this on Lau, like just as you heard it. So she was kind of not anticipating either. So I'm going to say brilliant. That's one for you. And I mean brilliant in not just a sense of like intelligence, but I mean like brilliant, like sparkly. Like in a sparkly way.
Like how you would say about a diamond or something, right?
Yeah. Like brilliant.
Thank you. That's really sweet.
And honestly, this is something, maybe you're not going to put it on your webpage, but we could think of a different word for it. I mean, I think you could, but beautiful really is another. And I don't mean beautiful like visually. I do mean visually, but I really mean beautiful spirit. Like a beautiful spirit.
Thank you.
Yeah,
that means
absolutely.
so much more to me.
So a beautiful spirit. And gosh, you said feisty, and I love that word. That's a great word. But I also feel like a version of feisty. Because gosh, I'm thinking of the word, something that would resonate with, like, no one's going to pull the wool over your eyes.
Ooh.
Right? Like, you're not going to stand for any kind of nonsense. You are forthright.
Oh, I like that. Thank you.
So those brilliant, beautiful, and forthright. So those would be my 3 words. And so bosses, we get these questions, Lau and I get these questions all the time, right? What is my brand? How would you describe my voice? And I think it would be a great time to talk about branding, because branding is so difficult to do on your own, because this is why I asked Lau, what do you think? So I was able to get an assessment from eyes that were not my own or ears that were not my own. And I think it really helps to have someone brand you, but also to have you be a part of that decision in terms of what type of a brand do you want to be? How do you want to be perceived out in the business world for your voiceover business? So I know that for my students, there are 2 different forms of branding. One is a visual branding, which could be your website, right? And how you want to represent visually, but also vocally. I make it a point to tell students, as we go through our sessions together, I will be vocally branding them. And that really means to assess their tone, their style, and where I feel they fit within the industry in terms of what brands do you think you would represent well, and what styles and what industries your voice would resonate in.
I think that's brilliant. I mean, that's so important. And that's the very thing that everyone needs. Everyone's looking for it. Everyone needs it. Sometimes, I would imagine, it doesn't always match, or it's not always on the level of what someone is self-perceiving. And that's why it's so imperative that you have great coach, great people surrounding you to sort of keep you in line and keep you realizing what is realistic in your perception of whatever your branding is. So I think that that's fantastic that you do that. It's so important. And to do it up front versus a lot later on, so hearts are not broken. You know what I mean?
Well, I think that branding is a process. And I think that you can also evolve your brand. You don't have to be one specific brand or three specific adjectives. As a matter of fact, like Lau, you said before, there could be multiple words that describe you. And it's not something that, it took me a minute to kind of formulate my 3 words for you, because I was making a decision. There's so many words that came to mind, but I was making a decision. How do I best feel that your brand is assessed? And so I think it's important for bosses to know out there that branding is not something you can do just over a night or maybe by asking a few questions. I think it's something that happens over time, and it's something that can actually really evolve along with you. I know that my brand, especially my business brand, when I first got out there, I was Ann Speak. And, that was like, Ann Speak, what is that? What is Ann Speak? And Ann Speak was a very different logo and a very different look on my website. And I've evolved into something that I feel is more authentically me over the years in terms of who I am. And I love that you said intelligent, because that was one thing that I really wanted for people to perceive about me. It could just be that a female that worked in engineering, that is one of those things that I always wanted people to see me as intelligent and not necessarily, oh, there's a female. I want just, here's somebody who knows what they're doing. Right. And some people think that that's why I wear glasses, but honestly, I just need them to see. But glasses have always been a big part of my brand.
The truth comes out.
Yeah. Well, what about you, Lau? Because you've been in the business for some time, and how has your brand evolved over the years?
Well, it's funny. When I started this business, Lau Lapides Company, the studio, I ended up keeping the name throughout. I've never really changed the name itself. I think when I first started, though, I always had the mindset of an agent in my head, though it was funny. I wasn't really starting an agency per se. I was starting a studio, right? So I had this idea of actors' work, voice actors' work. And so that was one of the running titles in my mind of naming a business, because I wanted talent to work and I wanted to help them get to work. That was one of the So that was one of the original working title ideas I had. But then it went to Lau Lapides Company fairly fast, and then I stuck with it. Here's the interesting thing I found, Anne, is that despite me, or despite what I was thinking, it had a very large appeal. It had a large presence. That's what I'm looking for. A large presence to people on the outside that were saying, wow, you have a big company. And so I would start listening. I think in branding, how do I learn who I am? I have to listen to my audience. And so I spent a lot of time listening to how I was perceived by the audience. And I was astounded at how I was being perceived. And one was this big, large presence. And I think because the name was Lau Lapides Company, it sounded big. It had a large S. Right. So people would come and say, wow, you have an enterprise. Wow, you have this, you have that. And I was very small at the start, as most businesses are.
Well, one person sometimes. And I love that you talked about your personal name, because again, I'm always of the thought that we are our own personal brand. We're selling a product that is very personal to us. It's our voice, right? It's our essence. And so I always think, well, what better name for your product or your company than your name. And it's funny because people might say, well, I have a long name that's difficult to spell, or I have an Ann with an E that people always forget. But honestly, I'm always like, well, look, when I need a tissue, I ask for a Kleenex, right? So when I need a voiceover, I should ask for a Lau Lapides or an Ann Ganguza.
That's right.
And so I've come from the place of abundance, as you like to say, and I manifested, right? I am just putting it out there. I'm Ann Ganguza, and lo and behold, at some point, people are going to be asking for an Ann Ganguza, and it will work. And so that was part of my branding, my personal branding for my name was my name. And so my legal company name is Ann Ganguza Voice Productions. And so it's interesting because you're Lau Lapides company, and I'm Ann Ganguza Voice Productions. So I settled on that after many years of trying to figure out what should I name my company, what domain should I buy? Because I thought Ann Speaks was so cute, but we know that nobody really knows what an Ann Speak is. It's not really searchable, but Ann Ganguza is, right?
Right.
So I love that. And I think you wanted to see what people thought of you, right? And that was the basis for the beginning of a brand. So I think any of you bosses that are out there and you're starting the branding journey, I think it first has to start with you and the basis of who you are as a person, because it is such a personal brand. Now, maybe you're not going to put those words out beautiful, but maybe beautiful voiceover. Who knows? I mean, whatever comes to you that you want to be perceived as.
The funny part about it was, and to me, it was clunky. It wasn't a smooth transition or a polished thing because my name was hard to say. It's hard to pronounce. It's hard to spell. I got a lot of people who legitimately thought I was an Asian man. Like literally, they had no idea I was a Caucasian white woman. And everyone mispronounced my name. Everyone. Yeah. And so a few of the folks that are close to me said, are you sure you want to keep the name? Because no one's going to get it right and they're going to mispronounce it. And I said, absolutely.
Yes.
Because
oh my God.
That's what makes it memorable.
I am so in agreement with you. So in agreement with you about that. And that's like, well, don't you think people are going to spell your name wrong? Well, yeah. I mean, but no. People will learn it. And Ganguza, which to a lot of people think is really a difficult name to spell. It's not, but spelled the way it sounds.
It's different.
But a lot of people were like, yeah. And so why would you do that? I'm like, hey, no, keep it. It's kind of one of the reasons why I kept my unique New Jersey phone number for my cell phone because people would know if it was coming from that area code, it was Ann Ganguza. So
that's right. And as they stumble over the name and still stumble over the name and mispronounce it, it never bothers me. I love it because I know as they learn how to pronounce it or catch themselves on it, they're going to remember it. Yes, they're thinking about it. They're going to remember
They're thinking about you.
Yeah, so I think that's a hook for a lot of folks to think about. It doesn't have to be easy and it doesn't have to be common. It could be something a little bit unique that people remember that they have a tough time with, too.
No, and so let's talk a little bit about visual branding. So for visual branding, I'm assuming like visual branding would be your logo, your website. And so things that represent your storefront, that would be the visual branding. It can also be the visual branding of your person. If you're a person that goes to conferences or you're a person that goes out and speaks, go to the Chamber of Commerce and you're representing your business. So visually branding. So it's a little bit different than vocally branding. So what are some steps that you take, Lau, to visually help brand yourself or others? Like what steps can the bosses take to start with the visual branding?
Gosh, that's a great question. And it's like asking someone to think like a graphic designer or a web designer or do something that I personally am not. I am not a visual designer. I'm not a graphic designer. And yet, when I was starting out with a website, I had to kind of become that in the sense of the designer would need to know what was I going for? What was the visual I was seeing? What? So I had to
colors.
work
I think
with
starting
them.
with colors.
Colors.
I think colors are a good start, right?
Huge. So what I did was, and I remember doing this years ago before I actually started the studio, I started asking some of my students at that time, I would say, what color do you think of when you think of me?
Yeah. Absolutely.
And I remember some of their responses that it was so memorable to me. One of the women that I worked with was amazing. And she said, oh, red.
Yeah.
It just like came right out, just like that. I said, You don't have to think about that for a second. She said, nope, you're blunt, you're vibrant, you're specific, you're out there and unapologetic, and you're red.
Yep, I agree with that. I totally agree with that.
Because I love all colors, Anne. I don't have a favorite color. Like any color you give me, I would really like. Yeah.
So my favorite color is blue, right? Oh. Yes, believe it or not, blue. And blue is actually my brand. If you go to anneganguza.com, blue is. Okay. But I also love red, okay? And so
I can see that.
Red, yes, red is part of my VO Boss brand. So I got to have the best of both worlds in my favorite colors. And it's not necessarily a vibrant, bright red, but it is more of a deeper red. That is one of my very favorite colors. Right. And so I got to have both for both of my brands. So I think it starts color-wise. Also, I think it can really describe you in a lot of ways, colors. You know, blue is very professional, calming. But for me, blue is also the color of my eyes. And it was always been my favorite color. I mean, when I was a kid, blue everything. And I had blue stripes painted in my room on my walls because I loved the color blue. And so that's really an integral part of who I am. And I think starting with those colors and something within that color palette can be a great visual representation. And I'll tell you what I do with a lot of my students, if I were helping them brand themselves, is we actually create a private Pinterest board. And I have them, just like a vision board, right? I have them pin everything that they love on a board that they call Sarah's branding board, right? And they pin their favorite colors, and then maybe they'll go to like Bear Paints and get a color palette, right? Pick their favorite colors, pick their favorite fonts, pick their favorite things and flowers and whatever that might be, and put that on a board. And what's really cool is that I'm not saying you have to design the website, but you give that to the person who's doing your website design. And that is a great representation of who you visually are as a brand.
Oh, I love that. That's fab. That's fab. And you know, the other thing that comes to my mind is shape. So when I think about shape, right? I think about the first thing that comes to my mind was the documentary on coffee, the great coffee kings, entrepreneurs around the world. And Starbucks had done years and years of studies about their furniture. Like, what shape should their furniture be in their stores? And they went from square to rectangle to oval to round, whatever. Bottom line, they landed on more, at that time, it may have changed, more round than square. And the reasoning being they want the community to be connected in the circular sense than in a square sense with sharp corners and sharp edges. They were really going to town with the details.
That's
and
really
I learned
interesting.
a lot from that. And I thought, gee, what shape am I? What shape am I? And my logo was very square. It was actually very rectangular. And I analyzed why I did that. At the time, I was coming out of an executive speech firm that was pretty square. I mean, they were pretty corporate in a sense. So I thought it was the right thing to have a logo that had subliminally, I thought, that had sharp, structured edges to it.
That makes sense.
I've since created a new logo, and it's always in a work in progress, like everything. We're always work in progress. Right? And I didn't even think about this. I just did it, Anne. It became circular. I like the image, but I also love the sense of just roundness and the world and the connection, softening. Yeah. So I think shape plays a big part in your branding.
That is so interesting. And I like that because shape can define your website. You can have a curved logo or even curved edges on your website or represented circles. For me, I'm very clean. I'm going to say clean lines, clean circles. And I'm going to say that's so funny because your furniture decor can say a lot about your taste as well, right? I used to, for many, many years, it was more of like a Tuscan Italian dark wood. And then literally just moved to this new house, which became the interpretive farmhouse, right? And now I became all clean lines. And my backyard landscaping, believe it or not, is not circular. And it's funny because I would go to my neighbors' yards as they were getting them landscaped. And I'd be like, I love the circular curved paths. But in retrospect, my backyard is very square and asymmetrical, rectangular and asymmetrical. And there's something to that as well. So I think that bosses think about those things in terms of visual branding. Put them on a Pinterest board that you can either give to your website designer or use it yourself. In terms of colors and shapes, really say a lot. And fonts, I love clean fonts. I don't like fonts with curly anything. I don't like fonts that are Times New Roman, like that kind of like that. I like fonts that are plain, like Arial, that kind of a sans serif, those types of things. So clean and readable and clear. And I feel that that also describes my voice, believe it or not, clear and professional. And so those are my font choices. Then comes the part of the visual branding is also how you write about yourself, how you describe yourself. Do you write in the first person? Do you write in the third person? How is it that you're describing yourself on your webpage for your bio or for your business? But that really is a visual branding thing. And I think it can absolutely help if you start doing that and work with someone to help you to develop your visual brand. It's sometimes really difficult. And know that it can evolve. I mean, absolutely. My colors when I first started were dark green. So who knew, right? I evolved my brand into blue and deep red. And now maybe it'll turn into something else.
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
I think brands do evolve. They do refresh. And I literally just had a refresh of the VO Boss website. And so the colors that I had before were more brighter red and more of a royal blue. Now I've got maybe just a deep red and black. So the look is different. The website design, the logo is clearer. And so things can evolve. And I think it's good for you to refresh your brand once in a while.
Absolutely.
Now, let's talk about vocal branding. So it's something that I say that I do. And there's not a lot of people who they're like, oh, I love that you vocally brand me. What do you do? But I think a lot of people are vocally branded, right? When we try to describe what are the traits of my voice that you hear. I think that's definitely one. But also I think not just what are the traits of my voice, whether it's friendly, warm, whatever it could be.
The qualities.
Like, the qualities of the voice. But I think it's also more of a style as well. What do you think, Lau?
Oh my goodness. Absolutely. I feel like your personality, your persona, your inners, so to speak, do come out in the sound of your voice. Like when we're working with a client to find their voice, it's not just for voiceover delivery. It's for authentication of your identity, of your strength, of your inner soul, if you will. It goes that deep. So I think a branding is an offshoot of that. It doesn't have to expose everything about you personally, but there is that element there of how do you come across, how are you perceived on a daily basis outside of copy, outside of a booth, outside of work, and melding that into your professional life. So it's not a totally separate thing. It's really a hybrid of your persona, your personality, the personification of personalization with your professional chosen life and choices that you've made. It's kind of a combination of those two. I don't believe it's one or the other. So I think your vocal branding is really every possible range of motion movement that your voice is capable of doing and really landing on what do I do most? What do I do best? What do I like doing?
Right. And a lot of that has to do with when I talk about vocal branding, you're right. It doesn't stop at the actual technicality of a vocal. It really it becomes what styles, what do you love? What are you passionate about? Because again, that personality, that authenticity, that unique you is a part of your vocal. Exactly. And so it's so interesting when people try to just categorize it as just being friendly, warm, compassionate, gravelly. It's so much more than that, your vocal branding. And again, that's something that I think with a lot of times if a demo producer, if they're creating a demo for you, they'll ask you, what brands do you align with? What things are you passionate about? Because it really makes sense that if you're talking about things that you're passionate about, it comes through in your voice. And that becomes a style. I know that that there are people, let's say, if there's a male that comes to me that has a very deep, gravelly voice, what sorts of things do you think of when you think of a deep, gravelly voice? I don't know, Ford trucks, or, maybe a Cracker Barrel. I don't know. Or it could be John Deere construction equipment, that sort of thing. So what sort of things with a higher pitched, young, youthful voice? Well, believe it or not, a lot of times I think of finance. There's a lot of finance lately that is using young, millennial, youthful voices because that's the audience they're trying to attract. Not just the young voice for that, but just it could be college spots or anything that style or that age would be passionate about or thinking about. And a lot of the style and the content that we're shooting for is where they want to advertise to. Are they advertising to a younger audience? Are they advertising to a more mature audience? And so wherever your voice follows suit, the best, I think, helps to vocally brand your voice as well. Even though I have a younger sounding voice, I certainly cannot sound millennial. It's just not necessarily in my authenticity, right, to sound millennial. Even if I try to mimic a millennial, I think ingrained in my voice is too many years of, I don't know, just too many years, right? So I could try to sound millennial, but will I feel authentic doing it? So for vocal branding, I'm always very much about the authentic part of you. Now, if you get into character, that's something different, right? That's a different voice. And again, that's also a different passion. I know so many people vocally that can bring out so much more personality behind a character than they can with their own voice. It's hard for them to assess their own voice and to be authentic with their own voice, or realistic, I should say. Because I truly believe there's a lot of people that are exceptional character actors that they're really good at, and maybe hiding behind the voice is not a good word for it, but I want to say they're very good at putting on another character. And sometimes when you say, well, let me just hear you because you are good enough, your voice is good enough, that's a little more difficult for them.
No question about it. And I think a lot of folks get really disappointed and let down when they are prototyped quickly or when they are thought of as, oh, you're the grandmother. Oh, you're the Jewish middle-aged mother. Oh, you're the this, you're the that. Well, that's what our industry does. I mean, our industry has to do that for time's sake, for expediency, for ease. I can do Shakespeare. I can do a lot of things. But what do I do most of? What do I do best? What do I do easiest? What's the easiest thing for me to deliver? That's important for you to really identify that and recognize that that's what you're going to get. It's not the only thing you'll get. You may get something outside of that for sure. But if you can make the job of the producer or casting a lot easier, then you want to do that. And you want to listen to your audience, how they're seeing you, or in this case, how they're hearing you. How do they hear you? I remember, too, I got a number of times through the years, even when I was much younger, and even when I was in my 20s, I was starting to get audiences say to me, oh, yeah, you're like the nanny. You're like the Jewish, mom. You're the Jewish mom, aren't you? And I was offended. Here I was, a conservatory actress. I wasn't married. I had no children. I was like, all right, I guess so. I thought it was almost like a slight to me. It was almost like a backwards insult of saying, is that all you hear me as? Is that really what it all has come down to? Well, since then I've learned that level of familiarity, that level of maternalistic quality, that level of ethnic appeal is very gratifying for a lot of people. Very gratifying and very gratifying for me, too, as an actor. And so I adopted that. I love that. I embrace that. But then I know I could do something totally different.
Right.
At another time. It doesn't really limit me, not really. It just expands the level of work that I can get because that's what I get known for, see?
Yeah. I'm so glad that you said that. And I think that there are people who hear your vocal brand as a type. I mean, I just had a student who had a really deep, gravelly voice. And I said, oh, we're going to do a Kubota spot because I had construction equipment. He goes, that's so funny because I work in IT and I have no idea about construction equipment. And I said, but it's something that it's associated with that type of work and you sound great at it. And as long as you're okay with it, and you can be authentic about it. And it doesn't mean you have to go out and run a piece of equipment to be authentic about it. You just have to be authentic about the message and what you're saying.
That's right.
So, I'm so glad that you said that, because there are perceived, you sound like this type. And for me, I've okay, you've got the professional educator because you've got that clear, articulate voice. Well, I can't help. It's a clear, articulate voice. And I would love to have that raspy kind of demure kind of other voice, but it doesn't physically happen for me. So I said, okay, I'm going to accept that. And, if I get hired for that, of course, that's fantastic, right? But it doesn't stop me from learning other genres. It doesn't stop me from trying to vocally place my voice and do different things to increase my acting ability and my vocal ability. So it's just something, if you embrace it and then just move forward, continuing to broaden and expand your styles. I think that's a wonderful thing.
Yeah, it reminds me of when someone says, oh my God, you look like my best friend. You look like my aunt. You look like this one I know. That used to annoy me. That used to say, it's like I'm not my own identity. I'm not my own person. I look like someone everyone knows. And then I realized that's a really great thing because they already feel close to me. They feel familiar to me. They feel like they know me.
What a great way to analyze that, because that's the same thing with your voice, right? So if somebody is kind of saying, oh, you're that voice, well, then that's great because they're familiar with it. They feel comfortable with it. That's a wonderful way to look at it.
That's exactly it. Exactly it. So don't look at anything is limiting you. Look at it as expansion, your brand, your vocal, your visual, your inner, your outer. I think the sky is the limit, but do understand how an audience, there's like a truism, a community truism that you get in a film when you're watching a great film or when you're listening to great music. There's a community understanding of familiarity or greatness or fitting in a particular role. And it's important to just pay attention to that. So you're red. You're red.
There you go. And I can also be blue. So there you go.
And you can be blue.
So branding, guys, it's not something you can do overnight. Remember, it definitely helps when you have someone else, a trusted coach, a trusted circle of friends and community that can help you to understand how you are perceived. And also, I think it takes a lot on your part to project what it is that you want to be perceived in an authentic manner, of course. That's going to be your start to branding. Just know that it doesn't typically happen overnight and that you can evolve and change with it. I think that's a wonderful thing.
And it can be a load of fun. And you can learn an awful lot through the years of shifting your brand and changing your brand and what your perceived brand is, and really kind of just opening up and accepting the flow of what the audience and the universe is giving to you.
Yeah, I would never disagree to being able to discover more about myself and learn more about myself in order to help put out a brand. So it's all good. It's all good, bosses. Well, thank you, Lau. What a great conversation.
My pleasure, as always.
Always a pleasure to have you. I'm going to give a big shout out to IPDTL, our sponsor. You too can connect and network like bosses. Find out more at ipdtl.com. Also, for your voices out there, 100voiceswhocare.org. You can use your voice to make a difference. Find out more at 100voiceswhocare.org. Bosses, it's been amazing. And Lau, it's been amazing having you again. And we will all see you next week.
See you next week.
Bye.
Join us next week for another edition of VO Boss with your host, Ann Ganguza. And take your business to the next level. Sign up for our mailing list at voboss.com and receive exclusive content, industry revolutionizing tips and strategies, and new ways to rock your business like a boss. Redistribution with permission, coast-to-coast connectivity via IPDTL.